This video is about just one guy who had all these problems. I call him Mulch Guy in this video because he delivers my mulch. And he said, yeah, you should definitely do a video if you want on this story because he wanted other people to know how awesome his life has become. So this guy suffered from colon polyps, joint pain. So Mulch Guy suffered from colon polyps, joint pain, constipation, GERD, and sinus infections. Now, sinus infections seem to be more like they were actually aseptic sinusitis because you can have the exact same symptoms. So his sinus symptoms went away too, all by deflaming his diet. So I first met Mulch Guy about 4 years ago when I basically removed tons of grass in my yard and I replaced it with well, I planted tons of food trees and I had growing beds and all the rest, and put tons and yards and tens of yards of mulch down. So I let it go. So I hadn't seen the guy in like a year and a half. So you can see down here that there's like, you can see a little bit of mulch, maybe right here, a little mulch in here. All the rest of what you see here are weeds. Now I already taken, this is a huge concrete block bed that I made. I pulled the weeds out of here. Still hadn't pulled them out of here yet. So the whole yard was just like crazy weeds. So I weed it all out. Mulch Guy comes, and people have asked me at different times, show pictures of your yard. So anyway, this is what happens when you just ignore it for a year and a half. You literally have trees growing practically, and that's what happens in Florida. If you don't get rid of your weeds, they become trees. So, and I use no Roundup, no glyphosate touches my yard. Everything is pulled by hand. And so here's what it looked like after I pulled it and laid down the mulch. So huge difference. So what you see on top of the beds, there's a bed over here too. These browning leaves, these are avocado leaves. So over here you can see a part of an avocado tree. This is a peach tree. And this avocado tree had a massive feral growth, about 40 feet tall. So I cut it out and I threw the avocado leaves on top of this bed along with banana leaves that I put on the other beds. So these are thick banana leaves covering up the dirt. Let the dirt breathe, be healthy, and then nourish it with the nutrients from the banana leaves. Over here you see chives. This bunch here, this is just a massive rosemary bush. What you see here, more avocado trees. So if you take a view back, this is after I did a lot of weeding, but there's still lots of weeds. And you can see there are weeds through here, there's weeds down in here, over in here, and then this is what it looks like now. So what you see here are more avocado trees, and this is that big, huge concrete block bed that I had, and these are the other three beds back there. This bed here, this is growing a turmeric. What you see here, this is aloe vera. This is a prickly pear. This is a hacked down papaya tree that was not fruiting, so I just got rid of it. I'm going to replace it, put probably a new papaya tree in there. Anyway, so this is what it looks like now, and I got like 15 yards of mulch delivered, and 10 of the yards was delivered by Mulch Guy. And so Mulch Guy has always asked me questions when he came over. Like 4 years ago, the first one, he would see that I was, basically I'm probably 5 years older than him. So he's 55, I'm 60 now. And he'd always ask me, he goes, how do you stay so lean? I said, well, I don't eat sugar, flour, refined oils. He goes, really? That's all you do? I go, well, if you don't eat those calories, then you got to eat other calories, and the other calories are going to be meat, fish, chicken, and vegetation. He goes, that's what you got to do. I go, well, I mean, that's what all diets pretty much are. You can be a vegan or an omnivore or a carnivore, but most people are omnivores. So you just don't want to eat sugar, flour, refined oils. So he would come back on and off. When I would get more mulch, he would ask me the same question over and over again. This time he had a story to tell me. It was a story wherein all those conditions that he had disappeared basically within 6 months. Now the colon polyps is even a better story, a much better story. But one of the things he thought was that he stopped eating meat and he ate a bunch of, he started eating fish and just tons of vegetation. He never felt better in his life. He thought that meant that meat causes constipation, and disease. I said, no, it's not the meat. It was the sugar, flour, and refined oils that you're eating with the meat, because the guy was living on basically meat, which would be burgers and steak and hot dogs and white bread and white pasta and French fries, and then just crappy snacks made from basically corn oil and corn syrup solids and high fructose corn syrup. So it was the lack of fiber that was causing the constipation. But if you go look at populations where they still eat traditional diets, So this would be, their quasi-paleo diet. The Maasai people are a great group to look at. So they're down in Africa. They're Kenyan. You can see northern Tanzania. And so their primary calories historically are going to be meat from the animals that they raise and graze, and milk from the same animals. Well, not the same animals, obviously the females giving the milk, and then they drink the blood of the cattle that they kill for the meat. So their diet is meat, blood, and milk. And they're essentially heart disease free, but they die young. And why do they die young? Not from heart disease, they die young from pneumonia and diarrhea. So you can see they've actually been helped by vaccination in this context, but also they have been helped by having their water disinfected, because their water appears to be the source of their infectious disease. So it's not the meat that is the problem. So I explained that to the guy, because he thought like if you ate meat it'd be a problem. If you eat, this is what, probably a 12-ounce filet, I forget. Here's a glass of Cabernet, and this is 1.5 pounds of vegetation. No constipation when you do that. So for perspective, you can see this is a large, a foot across, foot in diameter frying pan, stainless steel. And in it I put in a 1 pound of organic broccoli from Aldi. And this 1 pound is way less in terms of size and weight compared to this here. So in this 1 pound, I forget what the calories are. It's maybe 200 calories. You can see right here, maybe 25 calories. I don't remember. But it's at most 200 calories for 1 pound of broccoli. So this would be no more than 200, 300 calories for all this, maybe less. So not a lot of calories. So when you replace sugar, flour, and refined oil calories with vegetation, you can eat a ton of volume and get way less calories. The best example would be this pound of spring mix, which is about 100 calories, compared to just 2 bites of this Warrior Health Bar that's 100 calories. So that is how we want to look at caloric intake and not get tricked into the whole meat is the problem issue. So here's our guy. So he just told me, he goes, the joint pain goes away, constipation's better, my GERD's not 100% better, but everything else is. Joint pain's gone, constipation's gone, and his sinus problems are gone. So the colon polyp story was the interesting story. So what he did, this could have been 5 years ago, I guess it turned out to be. So about 5 years ago, he went to the gastroenterologist and they found polyps. They didn't recommend any nutritional change. Didn't even ask him about what he was eating. And he was living on, remember, basically just hamburgers, hot dogs, the buns, more white bread, toast, and then pasta and desserts and ice cream and all the rest of the stuff. And he didn't change anything because he wasn't told to change anything. Then he comes by and sees me. I keep telling him to do this, and perhaps the interaction with me and just him looking on the online, he decides to just become a fisho vegan, right? So just fish and vegetables, and that was when he felt the best. And his symptoms started to improve. Now he didn't know if his polyps were gone, so he goes. So they first identified polyps, didn't make any nutritional recommendations. At that point, he goes back a year later, and he didn't make any dietary changes. So a couple more polyps emerged. None of the ones that were there got any worse. So he was told to come back 3 years later. So during those 3 years, when he made all of his dietary changes. Now again, before he left for 3 years, the gastroenterologist didn't tell him to change anything about his diet, didn't even bother to ask this guy, this poor mulch guy, about his diet. So on his own, he decides to DeFlame his diet, even though he didn't really know that that's what he was doing. So he goes back 3 years later to the gastroenterologist after all of his joint pain, constipation, sinus problems, sinus symptoms were gone, and 90% of his GERD was gone, for his colonoscopy. So he comes out of the colonoscopy, and the gastroenterologist is in shock and says, "What's happened? All of your polyps are gone, and your colon is perfectly clear. What did you do?" So the guy tells him what he did. So this is a mulch delivery guy telling a gastroenterologist who had to go through 4 years of pre-med, hardcore. I went through that, it's brutal. And then the guy goes to med school, 4 years of brutality. Then he goes on to become a gastroenterologist, which is another few years of specialization, and mulch guy cured himself. The gastroenterologist didn't, because unfortunately most, not all, but most medical doctors, all they do is monitor you as you get sicker, and then they provide more intense procedures to treat the conditions that they're monitoring as they get better, because lifestyle is never addressed or urged to be changed by the lion's share of practitioners. Not all, of course, because I know MDs who are hardcore fixing up your diet and getting you healthy, but the lion's share do not do that. So all of these symptoms were from this one mulch dude, and he is now cleared now. He told me he couldn't believe how unbelievably fantastic he feels. And I told him, I said, the other good thing about this is, in the event that you happen to catch the COVID, you might have had a really bad outcome, but now you're far better. He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, because obese people with hyperglycemia and all these problems, all these health problems, are the ones who suffer, end up in ICU, and then also end up potentially dying. So you probably save your life if you would have been infected. And he was, of course, so happy about that. So how simple was this? This guy didn't, and he took some supplements too. I go, what did you take? He goes, well, I started taking fish oil and vitamin D and CoQ10 and magnesium and basically he started taking polyphenol supplements. That's all he did, nothing special, just get rid of the crap, reduce the calories, took some basic supplements, and he freed himself from all of this misery. That's how simple it is. So all he did was he added vegetation, or he replaced these pro-inflammatory calories with vegetation and fish. And by the way, he went full vegan, and he said, I don't really feel as good as I did when I was fish and vegetables. I said, if you like meat, most people are fine with meat and vegetables. Meat's not the problem, it's putting meat on top of all of this that is the problem. So that's all the guy did. No training, mulch guy, and he cured himself of polyps that the gastroenterologist had no idea that you could actually do. Now, how bad is that? So this book that I've written here is about deflaming the diet. These books, these three that I pointed to here, are about what happens to you if you do not deflame the diet and how it all works. And this book here is about how to work on your brain to free yourself of the attraction and the control that these calories have over you. So these books can be bought as single copies at Amazon, and they can be bought as volume copies, volume discounts for all the books if you cruise over to DeFlame.com, where you can also link to and follow on these various social media platforms.